staff report.
All right, let's talk a little bit about so I put our last couple in there. I haven't pulled together stuff yet from March, but I did pull together stuff from January and February. Um, I'm sorry. Yep. January and February. So, couple high points. This year we've talked about before. We're calling it the City Slate. So last summer, we weren't doing our big festivals, so we decided we talked about we did the what we call it the summer slate then, which was a bunch of sort of one-off events that we knew we could scale and pull off and could be adjustable based on the pandemic. At the end of that, we said, okay, folks, we put out a survey to the public. Do you like us doing sort of like the one big day blues and barbecue, or did you like sort of having them spread out throughout the calendar? And folks said, well, why not both? So in our attempt to sort of do both, we've got what we're calling the city slate. That's city produced programming. That can all accommodate 100 or more people. It's all the way up to blues and barbecue. All of our free events, they're all free. We have 10 local sponsors to sort of help us pay for those. And we started putting on those events in January. The lights around Liberty Center were part of that. Beat the Bitters Fire and Ice was part of that. We've done an ice fishing event with Take a Kid Outdoors. Last weekend we had the Kites for Kids Festival, which is part of that. This coming weekend we've got both. It's called the Bunny Clue Trail, which is sort of replacing the Rex old Candy Chaos Easter egg hunt. So we'll be doing that around Liberty Center. Another event with the Take a Kid Outdoors and a whole bunch of stuff throughout the year. So we started putting those on earlier this year. Those are going really well. We're really happy about how it gives us sort of a way to market those as a group. We've kind of got a rhythm that's been working out really well. It's a little bit of extra resources too financially to pay for some of those events, which has been great. We've also been working a lot with the planning department. Right now, we're in the year-long process of updating our comprehensive plan. That's a planning document that sort of talks about land use and where things should go. Ours last was looked at in 2013. So this is a big overhaul, and we're going to this is a year-long project. It's called Connected to Tomorrow. So we've held some virtual events. We've held some one-on-one listening sessions. And coming up later this month are a couple of design workshops that we're helping folks to know about. We also just got done with our series of project open houses. Last year traditionally, we have talked about big infrastructure projects, road projects. We've had an annual open house where we've invited folks in to the library to come and meet the engineers and ask questions and learn about them all in one go. Last year, for obvious reasons, we did them all virtually online, and it worked out really well. So we would invite the project engineers over a lunch and have it all over Zoom. People could ask questions. We'd step people through the projects. And so this year we did that. We did that again. We can record them. People can look at them later. It's really helpful. So we just got done with the three of those. Those projects we talked about this year were the Dubuque Street project, which is going on now. The new City Hall project, which will start this fall and will move in 2024. And then we talked a little bit about, again, comprehensive planning and the Jones Boulevard extension that'll be happening later this year as well. Let's see, some other things that have been going on. Let me just sort of scroll through here and make sure I hit the highlights. Micah in our office has been working on this Welcoming America initiative. We got a grant to do this Welcoming America. It's about welcoming immigrants, and we're still considered rural, so it's under that auspices just to sort of build a more inclusive, welcoming community. She's working with Kelly Forkenbrock in the library, Zach Pilcher in the Recreation Center, and Angie McConville in administration. They're sort of our local boots on the ground. They'll be doing some events and some other things. Micah and Angie will be going to a conference later this year. So this grant comes with coaching, some one-on-one coaching from peers, and some hand-holding as we sort of work on some of these initiatives. We took our sort of first step into the Welcoming America initiative work last fall when we did Welcoming Week, where we went and talked with local restaurateurs who were sharing food from their background. So Rusiano's shared sort of how to make homemade pasta, and the folks over at De Flava Unit Food Truck talked sort of a mashup of sort of their some food from their background, and some folks from one of our local Mexican restaurants showed us how to make tacos, and that was also an opportunity for us to figure out how do we do video in Spanish, because the person showing us was did it all in Spanish. There were certainly some opportunities to learn how we can do that better, and what some of those barriers for us producing that kind of programming were. So we're really excited about moving that forward. I think we're in the midst of getting ready for Blues and Barbecue. So we're talking about food vendors. We've got our headliner lined up. We're working through that contract now, which is exciting. We're really excited. That'll be July 9th. Obviously, we feel a little bit rusty. It's a big event. It'll be 3 years by the time we get back to it, because we did it in 2019. We didn't do it in 2020. We didn't do it in 2021. So we're excited to get back to it and do that event. We've got some changes planned to it. The biggest one that folks will notice is that the layout of the event's going to change. So that park has had a master plan for a long time that's included an amphitheater. And the amphitheater is actually located on the north side of that park. We've always had our stage on sort of more towards the south. So last summer, one of the Summer Slate events, we did live music in Centennial Park. We put the stage where that eventual permanent stage was sort of intended to go. It worked pretty well. We're planning to do that again this year, because again, that's the sort of thing that's good to figure out with a temporary stage before you build one. And so we'll sort of see how that goes. So that's going to rotate. We're also trying to sort of build in kind of an intentional little bit of a lull there in the middle of the afternoon. So we're really focusing on kids stuff around the lunch hour. It'll go from 10 to 2. And then we'll have live music, we'll have food. We'll still be open for business, but we're going to sort of ramp down just a little bit, sort of in that late afternoon, but till early evening. We're going to come back with more live music, really focus on some great food and some craft beers. We think that's going to help us. We're seeing increased costs on some of our things. For example, we're also really concerned about being able to recruit enough volunteers. Those kids' activities take a lot of volunteers and are really hard positions to fill. We will have volunteer needs, and we'll of course let you folks know and the community know as we've got those opportunities opened up. So those are the two big changes that we've seen. So we're excited to get back to it. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you folks might have about what we've got going on.
Was it in this packet? Or is it a separate part of the agenda? Okay, nope, it's coming up next.
Okay.
Never mind. Any other questions?
Great.
I have one. About that. You said the grant that was offered. Is that from the state or federal?
It's actually from the Welcoming America folks themselves. It's a nonprofit organization, and Angie applied, and they invited 10 rural communities to join. Again, it comes with support. It comes with free attendance to the conference plus a stipend, and just some real hand holding to sort of work through their welcoming process. They call it a welcoming standard, and it's sort of just some ideas of things that make your community more welcoming. We see it as a good thing for us to do for a few reasons. One being, welcoming is good, and two, we also know that some of it too is workforce development. Iowa is struggling to fill jobs. Lots of places are, of course, but this has been a problem that we've heard from employers for years, pre-pandemic. This isn't a new thing. It's certainly gotten harder, and we know that that if we can be welcoming, that's going to help folks come here and stay here, and that we see that as important.
How close are we to being considered not rural?
I think it depends on what standard you're using. There was a few years ago where the USDA does home loans for rural communities, and they decided it was several years ago that we no longer qualified, and then they reconsidered, and we do qualify again. I think this was they use rural, but it really is a stand-in for towns less than 25,000. I think was sort of the metric they were using.
Okay.
So it really is more small towns rather than rural.
Very good. Move on to the discussion of public access and cable casting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. In your packet is a memo I about sort of to lay out a little bit of history of sort of the background of the channel.
What
And
what page?
this is on page 13.
13. Oh, that's close.
There's in let me do my best to sort of lay this out. Obviously, the legislative and policy landscape has changed. In the past 10, 12 years, we no longer collect public access PEG fees, public educational and government access, which we didn't rely on to provide this service, but is certainly one thing that's changed. It has shifted the burden for cable casting from it used to be our provider's responsibility to get our video signal onto their network. It is now the burden is now on us to get it there. So it's a small but important shift. Video distribution has obviously changed. YouTube exists. Lots of free services exist to distribute video. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. That simply means that a lot of providers are finding more success using those vehicles. And then we've also seen a decrease in the number of people providing that programming. I think what we're looking for is a little bit of guidance for a few reasons. One, we have aging hardware that we use to automate our cable casting. So what we do every week is Derek loads up video files now. It used to all be VCRs or DVDs, and schedules it, tells it when to play each thing. That hardware is getting old, and will have to be replaced if we continue to cable cast at some point. That it's not outlandish, but it's not cheap either, right? $20,000-$30,000 is very reasonable for what that is. As we look at moving to a new city hall, if we need to continue to cable cast, that adds some complexity to that, and that's just a thing that we will either need to figure out or not, depending upon sort of what the future is. And then two, again, it's still staff time is invested, whether that's in programming our programs or dealing with providers, those that shrinking number of folks. So I think those are the pieces that make this a good time for us to have this conversation. And I'd like to have this conversation and talk about what you folks see as vital. I'm happy to get more information. We certainly don't have to come to any sort of a decision tonight. But I'd like some of your thoughts and input as to what this looks like going forward.
Are there any metrics for how many people view the cable services?
We don't have anything like Nielsen ratings. We could certainly get subscriber number. I could ask for subscriber numbers from our from our two providers. My suspicion is that it's probably not a lot.
Yeah.
over the pandemic, because of a technical problem, when we were doing all remote meetings, for example, we weren't cable casting those meetings live on cable. They were still going out live online. We didn't hear any, we didn't get any inquiries or feedback, which tells me that's not how most, if any, folks are getting that. We continue to play back meetings there, but again, we also have them available on demand rather than on a schedule, online, and in a few other spots. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, so that's sort of like that's the. I don't have any hard metrics, and I could certainly ask for see what kind of subscriber numbers we do actually have.
Is this limited to two different cable companies? Is that so? It's not something people can pull off of
No,
free antenna
no,
rabbit
we
ears?
don't broadcast. We don't broadcast. We only cable cast. So it's only available on Mediacom in North Liberty and South Slope in North Liberty.
Yeah, my assumption, like yours, would be that it's next to nobody, but I don't know how to test that without, leaving out
Yeah,
people. Obviously, can't do a
Yeah.
Facebook questionnaire to see how many
Right.
people. But how many, before we make that decision,
Yeah.
how many future broadcasts do you think there will be?
meaning, how long would we go till we turn it off? I think. I mean, I think that the hardware will last us for a while longer. I don't think this is an imminent issue, where we're saying, uh, that it's. And that being said, there is some much older hardware that we use to broadcast, to cablecast. That's honestly obsolete. So we still use what's called a modulator, and it takes a digital signal, it takes a SD signal, and it modulates it and puts it over copper to a little shack that's up on Penn Street.
Okay.
Okay, you can't buy new T9 modulators, and the one we got was given to us by Mediacom, when I started, here at the city, more than a decade ago, and it was already old at that point. So at a certain and that's where that piece of it becoming our responsibility to get our signal to those providers comes into play. If we wanted to explore a different transmission hardware, those costs would be on us, and Mediacom would dictate what kind of hardware we'd have to get to do that. And I don't think that would add additional costs.
I'm seeing some examples you put in here from Iowa City and Coralville and what directions they're taking.
Yeah. So Coralville is very similar to us. They're a public educational government access channel, very similar size. They don't have any current programming provided. They do still cablecast, right now, but, they don't do any public access. Iowa City has a government access division that produces video, still cablecasts. Most of their stuff is online though. That's where their viewers are. That's where our viewers are. They had public access TV, which was its own nonprofit corporation. It shut down in 2019, perhaps. Yeah, 2019. They ceased operations, in part because they lost funding through that state franchising, change. They've been folded into, Public Space One, which is a arts co-op and nonprofit in Iowa City. So and have switched to just providing the tools to produce programs. That's not a thing that we have traditionally done, providing that stuff for people to produce. And honestly, I think that the value of that is greatly reduced now than it was, 5-10 years ago, as cell phones have gotten really good, and production equipment is honestly pretty cheap.
One of the reasons that I asked about how many more broadcasts there would be is, whether it's 100 people or one person that is
Yeah.
currently viewing. I didn't know if it would be possible to put a banner of some sort of ticker that would just encourage someone to email the city or show them what the different sources are where they can get that. And then maybe we could use that to gauge
Yeah.
how many people.
Yeah, I think that's
would
certainly
care.
a thing that we could do that would maybe get us a little bit. I think if we decided to cease, whether that we just if we decided, if anything, to cease accepting public programming or to cease cable casting, I think either of those we would be able to give adequate warning to either those providers or to the public before we made either of those moves. And I think that would be the right thing to do if we decided to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I
Absolutely.
think your audience would dictate, what you choose to do.
So should we? So let me do a couple of things. Let me see if I can get local subscriber numbers from those two services. See what I can find out for you. We'll start. Why don't we start running a slide on the channel, encouraging folks to go and find those meetings live at these other places. And let's also, why don't we also put something up that asks folks for feedback? We can develop maybe a short survey to ask people where they watch that local programming, and post a link to that online, and maybe do some print copies. Does that sound like a place to start? And then we can sort of revisit this. I think uh, in my mind, it makes sense to make a decision sort of based on the new city hall, right? Our office will move there. We need to have some sense of whether or not we can maintain current operations pretty easily before we move. It's sort of when we move, that's when things start to get a little bit trickier there. And we'll probably need to make some decisions before that point. But I could see us, right, if we decided that phasing out cable casting makes sense, doing it for the next couple of years, and then in 2024, when the move is complete, perhaps that's the moment,
Mhm.
if any.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion that you folks want to have about that?
No, I mean, I think until we know if there's even a possibility to know how many people would be concerned, it's kind of
Okay.
guessing.
Yeah, it is. We've always struggled with the how many people question. We've just never had good answers, and there's just not good data. It's not like a website where you know how many times it's loaded, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I can tell you how many times somebody has clicked play on a YouTube video,
Mhm.
right?
And how far they've watched
And
it,
how far they've
what
watched
part
it.
they fall off.
Exactly. I don't
Yeah.
have those metrics.
But I think the slide, like you mentioned, would be a good way, especially if we mentioned if there was going to be,
Yeah.
let people know there's a forum like this.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know that we've had somebody show up for
Yeah,
public comments, but
Yeah.
that, someone would be welcome to come and
absolutely.
speak with us if they felt strongly about it.
Great. So I will try to get some of that information together, and we can discuss again maybe next in May or June. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Great.
We can move on to old business. I don't know if this is the point to bring this up, but I'll bring it up here. I know the focus of earlier meetings when I joined the committee was a lot based on serving people who may not have the means to access
Sure.
internet and the different ways that we get our communication. And I know with Micah starting, I'm guessing maybe I want to make sure that we're not losing focus from earlier meetings, just kind of based on how the committee has changed.
Sure.
But I'm assuming that with Micah's new role, that that's being addressed more on an everyday basis.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. We're trying. We're trying to again. These. I think these conversations they're everybody's job, and It's Micah's job to make sure we're having those conversations. I think we're working to fold those in with the neighborhood ambassadors to talk about what does this communication look like in your neighborhoods that doesn't rely on the internet. We're working to make the internet more accessible. So our library's got a grant to check out hotspots, which helps. And I think it's about building these relationships. Again, that's Mike has got the bandwidth and is working to make sure we build those relationships with those folks who are marginalized or underrepresented.
Okay. That was all I had. Any new business? Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Is it-
Meeting adjourned?